Welcome, everybody, to the ITS World Congress webinar series. My name is Rita Bhandari. I'm Senior Manager in ETCO's Congress team. Our team's been working very hard these past months with our host, the Roads and Transport Authority of Dubai, as well as our co-organizers, ITS America and ITS Asia Pacific, to ensure that we bring you a very rich, fruitful, valuable Congress in the tradition of the past Congresses. Um, Today, we are here for the first of three webinars in a series that's going to give you a little preview of what we have in store for you, what are the key pivotal themes, the topics, and some of the influential speakers and delegates that with whom you can interact, with whom you can engage to drive and innovate smart, safe, and sustainable mobility. But before we get into the thematic part of the webinar, for which I know all of you are here today, I'd just like to give you a very quick overview of our preparations for the Congress. So hopefully by now, everybody, most of you have seen this very colorful page on our website. This shows you the different kinds of sessions that we have in our program. The 5-day program runs from the 16th of September to the 20th of September. So it's a rich menu, and I'm sure that you'll find something to everyone's taste. And for those of you who've submitted sessions and are waiting for news of your program when it is, please be just a little bit more patient. In the next 2 weeks, this will be updated with the exact names of the sessions and the exact titles of the timings of the sessions too. In Dubai, this is where it's going to happen. This is a very, very impressive Dubai World Trade Center, which is, I believe, 20,000 square meters of space for exhibitions and all the sessions in one place. What we are expecting at the Congress is around 20,000, up to 20,000 visitors, delegates. There'll be 500 plus exhibitors, and we are hoping for sponsors and partners. We already have a few on our website. There's going to be a very rich high-level program and also a technical program. Plus, and the technical program, there are going to be 200 plus sessions. And then there is, of course, the social part of the program, which is always a lot of fun. These are some of our delegates, the profiles of our delegates, all from the automotive industry to research, to the services, systems, national and regional transportation authorities. You can find more of this information on our website, so please do check it out. If you are interested in becoming a Congress partner, we have tons of opportunities for you to be able to, get these value in thought leadership, lead generation, brand exposure and advertising, and also for community building and networking. Finally, almost finally, here's a quick timeline mainly focused on the program. Many of you know already, we already have a few registrations. Registrations opened on the 21st of March. This is the early bird registrations. And on the 9th of April, as I just said, you'll get a full program overview of all the sessions where you can choose where you want to go. On the 15th of June, the early bird registration period ends, reminder. And then, of course, on the 16th of September is when we open up the Congress. In the middle, very nicely spaced out, we have the three webinars. Today is the first one. The next one is on the 16th of May. And the last one is on the 24th of June. Both the last two are on Thursdays, so watch out for that. A quick reminder, please do follow all our communications channels, especially our newsletter, where you get all the latest updates of what's happening in the Congress. And of course, everything is updated regularly on our website. Follow us on LinkedIn, and you'll be kept up to date of everything that happens. So moving on, this is the agenda for today. Soon after, our CEO, Mr. Joost van Tomme, will give you the state of play of urban mobility today. Following that, our colleague Vlad, who's the Director of Strategy and Innovation at Ertigo, will lead a very interesting panel discussion. I'll leave Vlad to introduce the panel later. A few house rules. All of you attendees are muted at the moment. The webinar will be recorded and shared through Ertigo's communications channels. And please, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please do use the Q&A chat box to ask your questions, and do indicate to whom your question is addressed, and we'll answer you within this session, or if not, even through email if you leave your contacts. So with that, I pass on the floor to our CEO, Mr. Joost van Tommer. Joost.
Thank you, Rita. Good morning, good noon, afternoon, good evening, good night to all the listeners. I'm very pleased to be with you virtually together with my team and our key fellow speakers, and of course our host of RTA Dubai. This webinar is unique. We're going to present the setting of the Congress, of course, in Dubai, the World Congress on ITS, coupled with a flavor that we're going to give a preview, a sneak preview, actually today on urban mobility and decarbonization. Not a buzzword, but actual reality in the 3 regions in the world. This is indeed the dynamics of mobility. You will hear from us quite some different perspectives, very challenging insights on urban mobility, a very crowded space, literally, with a lot of challenges. You see some of these challenges that we work on here with Ertigo, with the Commission, with the European Commission, Parliament and Council, and actually with the other regions like the US, Asia Pacific. These challenges are notably congestion, so it's all about having a better mobility network management and orchestration of traffic, and also passive and active systems on the roads. Technology definitely helps with this. It's not only about V2V, V2I, V2X, but definitely about data sharing. And some of my colleagues will deep dive into that, I would say, potential in Europe. And a new kid on the block, a relatively new kid, is air mobility, innovative IRO services. That's also about drones and eVTOLs, another, I would say, way of moving people and actually logistics goods. The second big challenge is pollution. It's actually climate, not only climate, but actually air quality, pollution, so particulate matters. And for this, in Europe, we have some very strict bans on diesel and petrol or fuel, fossil fuels, as from 2035 for new vehicles. But there's much more in store on this one. We see urban vehicle access regulations and the digital twin of that more and more popping in. I mean, cities are banning certain types of vehicles, certain way of moving, and that's also giving incentives to other ways of moving, like softer mobility modes. Definitely data sharing is on top of our mind with Ertigo as we do the mobility data spaces for these things. And micromobility is actually one of these new soft mobility modes. In Europe, we have a declaration actually on cycling, which is our ambition here in the EU 27 to double the capacity for cycling in Europe on the landscape. Accessibility, equality, access to systems and transport systems, also digital savviness, understanding these things, because everything gets digitized and digitalized, and MaaS is a good example with all these nice apps bringing you from point A to point B, but actually you still have to move yourself physically and you have to use an app. And so the digital divide is also creating some questions, not only in Europe, across the landscape in the world. So it's all about equity. And finally, infrastructure, physical infrastructure, the digital side of the infrastructure, not only about transport infrastructure, but all things around it. So space management is definitely high on our agenda here in Europe. And I see the same actually also in Dubai. I've been there with the team a couple of weeks ago. It's about fair use of space by everybody wants to claim that space. So definitely policies will be necessary and regulatory mandates here and there. So that's the dynamics I see in mobility. We definitely have a commitment on that with our partners of the European Union and based more specifically the European Commission. And Susanna Kraak from one of the Director Generals of the Commission will entertain you, I would say, with some of these elements. I will not go in detail to all this, but there's a definite an urban agenda of the EU next to the subsidiarities of cities that have their local agendas. It's all about having plans ready and not only buzzwords. It's really very dedicated mobility plans mandated for some of the cities that have urban nodes in Europe. Civitas is then bringing these groups together, also closely linked to Ertico. It's about cities doing knowledge sharing, better practices, scaling up, and best, I would say, incentives for each other. Horizon Europe, my colleague of the Commission will explain you that there is a lot of funding available, European funding for pioneering projects, European funded projects, and increase the deployment actually of decarbonization for cities. And this goes together with the city's mission, as you will hear later on today. We call it the Green Deal in Europe. It's actually a deal coming from the European Parliament and Council based on the European Commission's proposals, with a dedicated European Commissioner responsible for the green character of our society. And this goes not only for vehicles, it's about roads, about assets, it's even about taxonomy, investments, and it's about recycling as well. So it's from the day something is born until the day something is, well, has to be thrown away. And actually, instead of throwing away, we try to reuse the components of that. And all this is about moving you and me, goods, as well, logistics. On the next slide, you see the wider agenda. As I mentioned, the Green Deal. Next to that, very topical in Europe with the 5 years mandate now of the Commission is a data strategy, where we try to really unlock the potential of data from IoT devices, from vehicles, from PCs, but also from smarter traffic lights, for example. Even pedestrians will be equipped with some of these tools, or can be equipped with tools to use data in a better way in order to move from point A to point B. Needless to say that there is a lot of, I would say, a lot of investment needed from the private sector, but also the public sector. In Europe, we have national access points in each country, each member state that really has to deploy all this data available from the mobility actors, being it transport mobility, being it passive and active systems. And this results in a whole SSMS, as we say, Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, until really the details on how should we equip the roads with active and passive safety systems, how to deploy ITS, Intelligent Transport Services, across Europe with a dedicated mandate for sharing of data. The whole agenda of automated mobility, including robotaxis, including valet parking services, all this is now on the regulatory front with a uniform European type approval system, brand new, that we're now trying to deploy in the member states, thanks to FAME and many other projects of Ertico and the Commission. And finally, the core of today, the EU missions and the missions of all cities, it's becoming more green, more reliable, more sustainable, but also more smart and smarter. And that's exactly what you will hear from my colleagues speakers today. So that's more or less the agenda we're going to bring to you to cook the meal, all these ingredients. And I think I can give the floor back to Rita. And again, thanks to Rita for hosting us. Please.
Thank you very much, Joost. I will pass on directly to Vlad for the very interesting panel discussion that's waiting for us. Vlad.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Joost. Hello to our global audience in whatever time zone you are. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Vlad Vorotovic. I work here at Ertico, as mentioned, as Director of Strategy Innovation. What that means is I'm leading the team that works on the projects that support the policies in Europe in really deploying the smart mobility and sustainable solutions, including those for the cities. I like to say we are the deployment arm of the Commission. I have 2 slides just to present overview. So next slide tells you how we link to the policy of the Commission. You see the circle, blue circle on the left-hand side, smart and sustainable mobility strategy. And our projects are spanned in 4 focus areas. We work at Ertico, connected, cooperative, and automated mobility in purple color, clean and eco mobility in green, transport and logistics in yellow, and urban mobility, which is the topic today. We developed a roadmap. This roadmap really mimics the roadmap and the KPIs of the Commission. And then you see step by step how we are working on different projects, different initiatives, different platforms to achieve the goals stipulated in the policy. Again, the main principle today is talking about the decarbonization of urban mobility, and you heard about climate neutral cities. You will hear more. 2 of our projects we are involved. One we are working alongside our partners. The other one we are leading, are helping none other than 20 different cities, climate neutral cities in Europe, to achieve this challenging goal. If you want to learn more about what we do, we also have this information on our website, including the other focus areas that we are operating. One more thing that on the next slide that's really important for the outreach of Ertico and Ertico partnership. In 2020, we started the initiative. We reached out to the cities and asked them the questions. What are the challenges? What are the objectives? How they are planning and thinking and what they're doing to achieve the decarbonization. We asked them the questions you see underneath the pictorial on sustainability, on data sharing, on mobility as a service. The first report was published a year and a half ago now, with 150 cities answering these questions. You can find it on our website. 100 of those cities are in Europe and 50 outside Europe. We are now on about 220 interviews, and we added some new topics as well. You see in the so-called phase 2, asking these questions and additional questions, trying to talk to the cities, engage, understand the challenges, and then relay those challenges and work commonly through the projects and initiatives that they meet the climate neutrality. And that is what we're going to now talk on the next slide. You see the excellent lineup of presenters we have for today's speakers, our friends and guests. So we have Susanna Krak, Policy Officer from DG Research and Innovation from European Commission. I will ask my colleagues now to open their cameras so you see them as well. We will start with Susanna presenting us the point of view and basing and laying out the foundation from the Commission point of view, from the political and policy point of view. Then we're going to go into other speakers to tell us from the city perspective what they're doing concretely to achieve this target. The first speaker will be Khaled Al-Alwadi from RTA Dubai, the host city of the Congress, to tell us the international practice and what Dubai is working, because Dubai is also looking and correlating with initiatives from Europe, from America, and rest of Asia Pacific. Then we have one of the 112 climate neutral cities represented to Mika Kulmala, project manager at City of Tampere. And he will tell us about the European practice, the climate neutrality goal, the climate neutrality contract that Tampere now has with the Commission reaching the objectives. Then we move and ask our friends and partners from around the world to tell us about their best practices on the topic. Dr. Young Jun Moon, Dr. Moon from ITS Korea and from Asia Pacific will tell us the viewpoint from their side. And then last but not least, Carol Schweiger, our friend from ITS America, who will tell us what is the latest in the US on this topic. So this is the lineup. We will basically ask the colleagues to present. I'm asking them to be within 5-6 minutes of their time. The questions and answers will be at the end of this session. We have dedicated Q&A panel. Reminder, you have the Q&A option in the digital tool we are using, so please use it to ask the questions. So now I'm going to pass on the floor to Susanna. Thank you very much for being with us and tell us more.
Right, thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to be here and to be part of this very important discussion. So as you mentioned, I'm from DG Research and Innovation, specifically from the unit Clean Transport Transition, so quite fitting for the discussion today, where I will talk a little bit about decarbonizing transport through innovative mobility solutions, but also looking more at the R&I role to make transport safer, smarter, and more sustainable. So Joost already provided some background information on the policy landscape, let's say, but I will go a little bit more into detail into our activities at EU level, which evidently are quite broad and also quite numerous. But so basically the vision of the current Commission, which by the way will indeed change or come to an end with the next elections, is to deliver on a Green Deal and also setting the agenda for a climate neutral Europe by 2050 across sectors. So what we call climate mainstreaming, right? So this means a reduction, of course, of 55% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, and then also later by 90% by 2050. And so it's important to note that these green actions are not particularly new to the Commission or to the European institutions or to our activities, but they're now legal obligations thanks to the Green Deal and to the European climate law. So climate change is obviously one of the biggest collective challenges that we are facing, and that requires a collective strategy and action plan to be able to rise up and to tackle that challenge. And this is what the Green Deal really is all about. It provides an opportunity to EU industries to create markets for clean technologies and products, and also especially for the mobility sector, which, as you see, accounts for a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, to offer clean, smart, accessible, and affordable transport to all. So next slide, please. So again, it was already mentioned by Joost, but more specifically in terms of mobility, we have since 2020 the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy that aims to support not only the green transition, but also related the digital transition of the European transport ecosystem. So again, with specific targets for 2030 and also for 2050. 82 initiatives have been put in place. There are 10 key flagship areas really that include what you see here on the screen for 2030. So 30 zero emission cars to be in operation, 100 climate neutral cities, carbon neutral collective travel for journeys under 500 kilometers, but also going in other modes. We're looking at high speed rail traffic and also looking at cycling infrastructure in order to make it more healthy and sustainable, looking at interurban and urban mobility, of course, automated mobility deployed at large scale. And then later on by 2050, having all cars, vans, buses, and heavy duty vehicles to be zero emission. And this enabled by a 10T network that can equip these sustainable mobility solutions and also through high-speed connectivity. And so really, this is a multimodal transition, and this is quite important, is that it requires not just, these specific action plans, but it also requires regulatory alignment, key enabling technologies across different sectors which have, by the way, different innovation paths and dependencies, but also importantly, a clear understanding of the societal impact that this will bring. And these new mobility challenges should not just, be sort of a technological innovation, but they should also really answer to specific needs and real needs and local needs and challenges, let's say, from the users, but also from different stakeholder communities. So how do we plan on doing that? I stress here the importance of R&I to support this mobility transition. So through our Horizon Europe R&I framework program, we fund and we support clean, connected, and innovative mobility projects to accelerate this transition. And this is really the focal point of the Cluster 5 within Horizon Europe, which is about climate, energy, and mobility. So tackling these issues, creating synergies across sectors, and also boosting the competitiveness of the energy and transport industries with a budget for this cluster of 15 billion for the years 2021 to 2027. And so in the next slide, I will also talk a little bit more about some more practical tools that we have to ensure this transition, so which are the EU partnerships, but also the city's mission, so which you see highlighted here on the slide. So we have 49 European partnerships under Horizon Europe, but in my unit we are dealing with, quite relevant for today's discussion, the following partnerships quite focused on road. So zero emission road transport, the connected and automated driving partnership, DUT, driving urban transition partnership, the batteries partnership. So they're all together looking at climate neutral and environmental friendly urban mobility in a system of systems approach. Also going beyond the vehicle really and looking at how to implement this more practically. So indeed, as I mentioned, so we're also dealing not in the same unit anymore, but we are also dealing with the climate neutral and smart cities initiative mission. So aiming to achieve 100 of these cities by 2030 and support all European cities for climate neutrality in 2050. And so this is done through specific R&I, funding opportunities, assistance and coordination at local level, co-creation, social innovation through citizen engagement, and so on. So if you go to the next slide, just quickly wanted to touch upon the added value of these partnerships, so the added value of these tools that we're using. So these partnerships, what they do is that they define and also they deliver on a joint vision and also a roadmap for future R&I activities with all relevant stakeholders. So what we call a strategic research innovation agenda. So it's coherent, it's long-term. They also bring together estates, each partnership brings together a state's representatives group that ensures that there's an alignment between activities happening at EU level, but also at national level in order to avoid overlap or duplication and taking into account these sort of trying to harmonize regulatory aspects, but also deployment plans. These partnerships also allow for a more structured collaboration and dialogue, not just between the members of the partnerships, but also between partnerships themselves, between EU programs, in order to ensure cross-fertilization of results and ultimately market uptake. And then finally, importantly, and more practically, it also allows for a better coordination between EU projects so that they can build upon each other and not just do research for the sake of doing research, but actually build upon concrete results and tangible results that exist already. And then I'd like to just finish my presentation with a practical example, which I think is quite fitting for our discussion today, which is CCAM, that puts this all, let's say, into practice. CCAM, so cooperative, connected, and automated mobility, which leverages automation, digitalization, and electrification to support new mobility concepts that focus on a mobility user approach instead of more of a driver-centered approach. And so while CCAM is indeed also a digital transition, it will be integrated with clean technologies to enhance its sustainability and its environmental impact. So we're looking at electromobility, charging infrastructure, smart traffic management, energy storage, and so on. And so we have a CCAM transition really that optimizes traffic flow, increases efficiency, reduces congestion, and of course lowers CO2 and pollutant emissions in transport overall. And so CCAM is not a faraway vision. It's already available today at certain levels, and it proposes and still is looking into new business models and services. So we have automated shuttles in urban environments, we have last mile delivery services, logistics operations, and so on. And then, I mean, yeah, again, it's basically looking at the vehicle itself, the vehicle of the future, but also the urban mobility landscape of the future in that sense. So it's quite an interesting transition and innovation in that respect. So finally, I invite you to have a look at two new projects that have just very recently launched, which is the MetaCAS and the Mobilities for EU projects, which are actually the direct results of the synergies that we have fostered between 2.0 partnership, CCAM partnership, and the city's mission. And they will demonstrate innovative mobility solutions through, again, electrification, automation, connectivity for city and people-based needs in transport. So with that, I close my presentation. Thank you very much. And you see here some links that are quite relevant to the partnerships and to the work that we're doing. I'm looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susanna. You said everything and it was great. And I will just add, Ertico has the pleasure to lead one of the two projects, MetaCase, that you mentioned as well. And we are very excited. Indeed, it started recently, 4 years, delivering zero emission solutions for the cities. And as I said, trailblazer cities and follower cities. And talking about cities, we move on. And as I said, two practices, two examples, starting with the host of this year's World Congress, RTA Dubai and Mr. Khaled, and then following by Mika from Tampere. Khaled, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vlad, and greeting for everyone. It's our pleasure actually to be a host and also to have you in the coming September, 6 months from now. We are looking with Ertico to bring a unique experience in the Congress, and definitely also in this Congress we are looking actually to enrich what Dubai is doing and also to indulge the visitors with the different projects, the different strategies that Dubai is actually focusing for many years from now and also for the coming years to transform the transportation system and also to transform the intelligent traffic system as well around the city of Dubai. And one of the unique actually the maybe strategy and unique vision that Dubai announced, and this was like 8 years back in 2016, is transforming the transportation system in the city of Dubai to be more smarter, to use artificial intelligence, to use the connectivities, and this strategy aims in transforming 25% of the daily commuting and trips to be done using different type of transportation system. So Dubai Metro is one of the longest driverless, environmental friendly, fully electric transport system that is contributing into this strategy. But also we are having a plan and we put a strategy together, as we can see in the next slide, a strategy that was actually detailed enough to define the different building blocks to enable this transportation and transformation of the transport system, where we defined the needed building blocks for the city to make the transition and to adopt the new transportation system in the city, starting from definitely the legislations, the policies, and also definitely the core of this, which is the technology, and defining the right partners in terms of delivering this. So Dubai announced since 2019 a worldwide challenge in getting companies from around the world in terms of solving different challenges that will be contributing into the achieving a strategy's goal. And this actually challenge was focusing on the first and last mile, on the robotics delivery, on the self-driving buses, and all these type of things. And it held us into also making a unique partnership, like the partnership that Dubai already signed a couple of years back with GM Cruise in delivering a robo taxi service around the city of Dubai. As also we can see in the next slide, this definitely will evolve a transition in terms of the way that the transportation system, which is evolving in the coming years from being a human-centric and interaction into a more let's say independent, autonomous, and this definitely transition will for sure would require as well transition in different let's say areas that would require the city to take and to perform to enable such change and such transition in the modes. As we can see in the next slide, we have started in a number of steps to enable this by having and establishing the digital, let's say, infrastructure that will be enabling the city, like the mapping, the IoT, the intelligent traffic systems that will be supporting such transition of the modes, all the way in terms of enabling and also having the right legislation policy that will allow us to perform tests of such modes on the closed circuits and open roads with the aim of providing the service publicly to the city. And we have we're proud actually to also to shed the light that in last December 2023, we started the first stage in terms of delivering and operating the robo taxi service in the city of Dubai. Also, as you can see in the next slide, this definitely would involve having, as I said, the different frameworks that are looking and governing the safety around the city. We had already established the testing law, the operating law for the self-driving transport mode on the city of Dubai, and definitely we have established a very sophisticated safety framework that will enable such testing and deployment on the open road. And as we can see definitely on the next slide, this would require full alignment with and compliancy on federal level when it comes to the legislation policies, and also changing the local standards like things which are related to the police governance, the first responders like the ambulance, like the civil defense. So all these process and procedure has been reviewed to make such transition for the city. Also in next slide, we can see that the level of cooperation that the government need to put on the city level to make such change is super important, that the government would play and bring the different authorities together to enable and to endorse and to push for such a transition. And this translated into definitely a huge level of cooperation that the Road and Transport Authority in Dubai is doing between the different parties, as we can see on this slide. And as we can see, definitely this would evolve, as well working on the experience for the customers. The way that the customer today interact with the service will be different than the way also the customer will be interacting with the vehicles in future with no drivers. This would definitely all involve in reviewing all the touch points for the service, starting from getting the service into getting into the modes and interacting, payment, and all these things. So it's a complete a new user journey that also need to be involved, where we have work on it, and we have evolved on it. And for sure this will continue, as we can see in the next slide, in having as well a different type and modes that we have to work on the same hypothesis in the same systematic ways in terms of providing the modes that will be contributing into the strategy, like the shuttles, like the robot deliveries and others. And also proud to see, as we can see in the next slide, that we had in March we had announced our partnerships in terms of delivering a first commercial aerial taxi service in the city of Dubai, which we are will be proud actually to shed the light more on it in the Congress. And also the aim is actually to have an operation by early 2026. So just to conclude, as we can see, all this actually is, as I mentioned, is contributing to the strategies that is aiming to improve the safety level around the city. It's reducing the infrastructure cost, increasing the mobility efficiency, and also definitely the reducing the carbon footprint that would support in providing more environmental friendly transportation system around the city of Dubai. So these are a few glimpses of things that we hope that once you're here in for the Congress, we definitely can shed more lights on them, and also to bring it more closer to you for your experience. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Khaled. The city of the future, Dubai, no better and more fitting host than you. And I have to underline the words you use in your presentation about the future mobility being shared, being public transport and multimodal driven, safety, paramount emphasis on safety. And of course, we are very interested to learn and see and hear more about robotaxis, but also about the drone services in Dubai. So a lot of things, and we can't wait September. Thank you again. And now let's listen to the European practice. Again, one of the front runners in the climate neutrality in Europe, and actually an Ertico partner, City of Tampere. Mika, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the invitation and introduction. So my name is Mika Kulmala, project manager for City of Tampere, and short introduction of what kind of actions we have going towards climate neutral urban mobility. In a nutshell, in Tampere, 180 kilometers from Helsinki to north, and population 255 at the moment, and growing quite fast, 6,000 new residents last year, and our mobility in Tampere is changing a lot. We have a new city tunnel, 216, and a new tram system started 2021, and also at the same time local commuter train system, and of course the whole public transport service, trunk lines and so renewed. So quite a big changes in our mobility and traffic network. We have a new ITS action plan called Sustainable and Digital Transport System of Tampere 2030, and it was last year ready, and to divide it into 2 years, 23 to 25 and then 26 to 28. And starting point was that Tampere goal is to be strong and recognized international forerunner in the innovations and development of digital transportation services and utilization of traffic data and promoting sustainable transportation system. And that's a starting point, and we have that was our third ITS action plan. And after the second one, we have new tram system and city development project, new arena in city centrum, lots of traffic data, automation, as mentioned earlier, show project, and now Metacatse project is going on, new digital services, and that was the starting point. And we all, at the same time, we made a action plan to our region, ITS action plan to our region, and also strategy to our local ITS factory network, which is the cooperation between authorities, resides, our universities, and lots of companies, and that's the way how we can collaborate in our region. The bar is quite high. I think the vision to 2013 is that in Tampere, commuters and businesses are served by Finland's best and Europe's best known sustainable and intelligent transport system, and different kind of goals at Tampere for travelers. That means that Tampere creates added value for passengers, and it's user-centered, not the technical. It's user-centered and safe system, transport network for our citizens. And Tampere harnessing innovations, intelligence, services, and as I mentioned, autonomous transport is one good example of that, and using traffic data in many cases. Tampere as a partner, that means that we want to be enabler and partner when developing and pioneering services and technologies, new services, new technologies with other companies. And one of the example is that we get out of best of our traffic network with high quality traffic control, traffic management, and transport system operations. And Tampere is known internationally and of course in Finland and internationally as a pioneer and developer enabler for new business in sustainable urban mobility transport. That's the one important point also in transport point of view, but also economical point of view. Here are 5 focus areas, and we have concrete actions under each focus areas. And the focus areas, we have a smart and versatile transportation system as an engine for urban development. Tram is one example, but also mobility services around it, and digital services and solutions. Accessible, attractive, and modern services as a part of everyday life for commuters. That means that user-centric needs of our commuters. We think that what are the best services for our commuters and citizens, and then support also new modes of transport, continuous sharing of real-time traffic information for travelers and so on. Then pioneer, implementing, and procurer of new innovations, technologies, data, and information. I think that we as a city authorities, that procurer is quite important, because that's the one of the main things we are doing, and making innovative procurements. That's the very good way to concrete actions. Opening data is of course one important thing, and as mentioned, automated vehicles for example as a feeder traffic. Then forerunner in sustainable digitalized mobility and partner in national and international development, cooperation between local network and also in participation in national and international networks, and forerunner in sustainable traffic management and operations. That means that there is a number of different kind of things that we want to do. So, and then the second and the other action plan, SAMP, it's a awarded a few years ago, and here is the 6 target themes for mobility in our some sustainable urban mobility plan. So low carbon mobility, safety for all, efficient, active mode of transport, equal mobility, and also environmental responsible and health for our transport. Then few concrete actions. Our city is growing fast. Challenge is that there's a increased number of trips, of course, and I think more tracks are coming. That's the one good effective way to go to carbon neutrality. New innovations, services, utilizing data, operations, cooperation, and also we need hard political decisions, and that's the very key point. I think that's the short presentation of Tampere. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Mika, and thank you for this lovely photo of sustainable and smart Tampere. Still green and nice to visit. And I have to say, the clear vision you have, the ITS at the center of your action plans, the sustainable urban mobility plans, are those elements that make you and have you as leading city in this domain, and of course, number of projects supported by the Commission, helping you in achieving the targets. So I think it's a really great success story from north of Europe. Going from north of Europe, we are going to our friend and expert in standardization, Dr. Moon from Korea, who will tell us the viewpoint and a little bit of emphasis why standardization and standards are important to achieve decarbonized urban mobility. Dr. Moon, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm going to talk about the standardization to be globally adopted. More than 30 years in ITS society, we already discussed our transportation is safe and mobility accessible and affordable and effectiveness and efficient. But we are now trying to discuss, the mobility concern. That is one of the most, the challenge of important. The issue is it sustainable for the future? Okay, so it typically environmentally friendly. Next slide shows the ISO, which already developed more than 25,000 publications for the internet standardization, gives you that provide some common language to open the common market in globally to be adopted. They provide internet standardization, provided some kind of guidelines and regulations, little bit regulations, the minimum regulations. But actually, ISO now, they are targeting for year 2030 is the digitalization as well as some the environmental concern. Okay, that's big issues from now on. Next slide shows that's why the ISO announced the very important steps on the London Declaration for Climate Changes. This declaration is adopted in year 2022 September. They were trying to foster the active consideration of climate science and social transitions in the development of new and revised all the internet standardization and also the publication. Okay, that means they want to facilitate the involvement of civil society, all the globally together, the whole nations together to on those the most vulnerable to climate change in the development of international standardization and publication. Typically, in our IT society, we have to focus on why digitalization and electrification is more important to making our society to be sustainable for the future by decarbonizing our cities. That's in Korea now. We want to adapt some of this the short distance, last mile or first mile. The electric, the automated shuttle to be adapted, that is proposed to decrease the trip generation from the driving their car. So we want to increase our public transport mode more than 71, 80%, some cases 90%. To the sharing and public transport mode, which is the decarbonizing, not trying to people's the taking all the time through within a short distance driving their passenger cars. Next slide. So typically in Sejong City in Korea, new capital city, we trying to adopt the electric automated vehicle in our city, and also they already installed the whole this city for the VTEX infrastructure, providing the digital the things all together, the connected the vehicle and infrastructure and vehicle people's everything to be connected together, which means we want to share the people, the civil society and the civilians. Then we want to increase encourage them to change their trip pattern to the shared and electric and public transport mode, not driving their passenger cars. So that's why targeting the carbon free city year 2030 to year 2040. Then with the thing we believe our all this the infrastructure maybe sometimes to be shifted to the people's, not just only for the vehicles, but also for the personal mobility, the mixing together. That will be the great for us. Next slide. So in ISO-TC area, so we develop a lot of the transportation the issues for the standardization, that the concept of green ITS services. Then as you can see here, ISO 2529 and 18561 series, and leading by me, and ISO 23795 leading by Article, and at this moment we have another decarbonizing the standardization 17748 series. Okay, next slide. So this is what I want to expand our the internet standardization market. That is the second the bullet you can see, promoting eco and green mobility service on numeric and mobile devices for both city operators and peoples living in the city for managing carbon-free and energy-related mobility. That's why I created ISO TC 204 Workgroup 17 under my authority. Then I created new subcommittee 70.2 leading by Article to save the planet in the global warming through numeric and mobile devices. I want to increase, I want to expand this whole the idea to the new technical committee under ISO from the next year. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If anybody asks what are the engineers doing to decarbonize urban mobility, in particular with relation to standards, they provide the tools and guidance how to measure and achieve and see the difference. So that is the gist, and please look at the links Dr. Moon shared. And another thing I want to just highlight, you talked about Seoul and Korea aiming at 80% modal share towards the public transport in Europe cities. Some of them are making a pledge, 85% of public transport, shared modes and active modes. So the whole world is thinking in a very similar synchronized way. And now let's go to the far west, all the way from north of Boston, our dear friend and colleague, Carol Schweiger, representing ITS America, to tell us about the American practice and American work on decarbonization of urban mobility. Carol?
Thank you very much, Vlad, and thanks to Ertico for inviting me to this really interesting webinar. And I think you're going to hear a lot of the same things that you just heard from the previous speakers in terms of what I'm going to talk about today. So if we can go to the next slide, the agenda. I'm going to do something similar to what Susanna did. I'm going to start by talking about what's happening at the federal level in the US in terms of decarbonizing transportation. Then I'm going to move to an example of what one of the states in the US is doing to address this. And finally, what one of the public transport authorities in that particular state is doing. So at the major federal level, this is kind of a unique program in the US in that this blueprint for decarbonization of all of our transportation in the US has been a collaboration among these 4 agencies. And that's not really something that's been done before, but it's very, very important when we talk about setting policy and really showing all of the states what the federal government is looking for. So on the next slide, we talk about what are the guiding principles here. And I believe the blueprint's guiding principles are items that you heard from prior speakers. Obviously, we need to come up with significant actions that we can measure in decarbonization. We need to ensure equity, and we want to continue the leadership in the US to help the states determine how they're going to address decarbonization. On the next slide, this shows the blueprint's strategies. And you can see in this slide a whole series of modes, many of which are personal modes, but also we've looked at things like freight movement as well. And so the strategies are kind of categorized this way. I'm going to focus a little bit on the public transport side of it. But on the next slide, we've sort of taken these strategies and identified what are the actual solutions for all of the transportation that we have, which you can see on the left-hand side. I included the arrows in this chart to highlight what public transport is doing in trying to address decarbonization. And you can see that there's a lot of use of battery electric technology in the public transport space in the US. That's really where you see most of the alternative fuels, if you will, although it's electricity. And you can also see that we're doing a lot with hydrogen and with sustainable liquid fuels as well. So speaking about one of the states on the next slide, we have an example from California. And in California, they have this particular, it's called the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation, which was adopted in 2019. And part of that regulation actually requires that all public transport agencies gradually transition their buses to zero emission technologies. And so it actually requires that a percentage of the purchase of new buses have to be zero emission buses. And you can see sort of at the bottom of the slide there, these zero emission bus requirements started last year for agencies that have 200 buses or more. So in our major urban centers. And then it starts in 2026 for smaller transit agencies. And then in 2029, 100% of the new bus purchases have to be zero emission buses. The final goal is complete transition by 2040. And so on the next slide, and this is actually my final slide, we're showing one of the public transport agencies in California that will be meeting the regulation that I just spoke about. This is their transition schedule for going to completely zero emission buses. So you can see Right now, and the years before 2024, the majority of the buses at AC Transit, which is in Oakland, California, are diesel buses, which is true in most of the US. But then you can see the progression moving towards both battery electric and hydrogen powered buses, all the way up through the end of that regulation. So now that we're at the top of the hour, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Carol. Really interesting. And we are now having questions from the audience. My colleague who is running the slideshow, if we can have slide 22, and can I invite all the speakers in the panel to open their cameras, please? The first question from the audience is, and I'm going to ask you, Carol, but I ask others also to comment, please. In considering the pivotal role of travelers' behavior in achieving sustainable goals, what strategies do you believe are most effective in fostering widespread adoption of more sustainable mobility, travel habits, patterns among the public? I know that mobility credits were discussed in the US at the TRB at the beginning of the year. Carol, tell us more. What do you think? How we need to nudge the behavior towards the sustainable modes?
It's a really kind of perfect question, because I think in years past, we have come up with strategies that we have just assumed will result in people changing their behavior. But that has not really been the case. I think what's going to work best is incentivizing the public to use more active modes, to use public transport. And that's very easy to say that, but we need to ensure at the same time that we're incentivizing individuals, we need to ensure that we are providing enough of those services that actually rival using a single occupant vehicle. And I think that's the biggest challenge. We can incentivize people, we can give them benefits, but if we don't give them the supply of those active and public transport modes, they're still not going to shift. So I think the nudging and having the commensurate infrastructure in place is going to work best.
Yeah, that's exactly very well put, very nicely put. And I will refer you all to what Jos said at the beginning, for example, on the cycling infrastructure in Europe, doubling the cycling infrastructure to unlock the potential of healthy and sustainable mode of transport. And bridging to an idea I heard in Dubai, and I'm really intrigued to learn more. Maybe Khaled can tell us about the loop, 93 kilometers of sustainable highway for pedestrians and cyclists. Khaled, can you just tell a sentence or two more about the loop?
Yes, sure. Actually, I mean, one of the definitely strategic goal for Dubai is increasing the walkability and also cycling. And this goes into the 2040 plan, which aims into let us say, revisit the way that the city as well will be doing the planning for the coming years. So Dubai invested actually into different cycling loops and the tracks. So the 90K loop is actually one of the loop that is contributing into linking the different, let's say, the east with the west part of the Dubai. Which actually by having and introducing this loop, Dubai is actually having with this close to 560 dedicated cycling track, which both actually would be aiming into building the culture in Dubai, since Dubai is not used to be a cycling friendly city. So the aim is actually to build the community and the culture of cycling as a sport and as a commuter, and this is something that we have seen it and evolved over many years during the past 7 to 8 years since we started this. And also we have also announced a plan to extend this into an extra 100+ kilometers in the next 3 years. That will be linking and contributing as well into linking the areas which currently is not cycling friendly in the city of Dubai, into actually having the link between those dedicated cycling track with shared cycling track in different communities and in different districts around the city of Dubai.
Excellent. So yeah, you are providing the infrastructure, linking the neighborhoods to do that, and 3 million people will have access, for instance, to the loop, which is quite amazing. We have more questions from the audience, so that's great. We managed to engage the audience. I ask, please stay for a few more minutes. We will not go more than 10 minutes past the hour, but really appreciate the effort from the speakers and the audience. There is a question on parking policies. So can panelists discuss the role of parking policy, supply and pricing? And I am looking at Susanna, maybe from the Commission's point of view and parking in your considerations. Where are you at that point, Susanna?
I mean, it can mean a variety of different things. I mean, it depends on looking at, what uses. I mean, for example, if you take automated mobility, this depends on the different use cases that, are being used for these, let's say, decarbonization of mobility. But I would say this is also part of this transition. It's not just about having these mobility solutions, but it's also about looking at the city, looking at the area, looking at infrastructure, looking at what those needs are, and to be able to cater to that. So, I mean, it's quite a broad question. Where do we stand on parking? But certainly these are aspects that are all taken on board and taken into account in the city's mission, and in sort of our urban mobility plans, to not just look at a technology or a vehicle, but also look at the surrounding environment and to make sure that that connects to this decarbonization strategy that we have. So it's important, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would say it's a coherent part of the overall policy, and what touch upon what Carol said, provision of the right solutions, and thus then, for example, public transport versus private, where you can then not use your car and be incentivized to use public transport, etc., etc. Also, technology has an interesting angle. We now look in Ertico at automated valet parking. So one of the use cases of automated transport in that domain, which is quite interesting, but that's a separate conversation. Some more questions very briefly. Carol, what is the predominant alternative fuel being used by public transport agencies when they start decarbonization in the US? What is the first thing they do, basically?
So the first thing that's done is actually a planning exercise to look at, for a particular transport authority, what alternative fuel makes the most sense. Now, in the US, that has overwhelmingly been the battery electric field. And it's very important in public transport if you're going to move from a diesel vehicle, for example, a diesel fueled vehicle, to an electric vehicle. That vehicle is, chances are, going to need to be charged during the day, which is not the case in terms of using diesel fuel. So a whole strategy has to be developed as to how that vehicle is going to be refueled, if you will, throughout the course of the day. But the battery electric area is the one that seems to be the most predominant in the US for public transport.
Yeah, I think what you said resonates also in Europe pretty much, but also this important consideration of planning for the electrified transport is important, and charging points. And then looking into the future, Mika, automated vehicles, how automated vehicles can help us achieve the sustainable goals. Can you tell us more? Tampere is a front runner in that domain. in vicinity is one of the largest research centers in Europe, with whom you are partnering and working on a lot of initiatives. So, Mika. Mika is currently muted somehow.
Okay, now?
Yeah, now works.
I think that the part of travel chain, part of public transport service, could be the very good and effective way. We have bigger vehicles in the future, and without safety driver, it's a cost-efficient way. It's a e-vehicle, so we have to check that how can we recharge the vehicles during the day. But I think that not taxis, not private cars, but automated buses and automated bigger vehicles without safety driver. I think that that's the very good way to compare to private car, better public transport services, and that's the good effective way to go towards carbon neutrality.
Yeah, public transport, shared mobility. Automated mobility, these are the key words, and actually we heard them throughout the session. We are 10 minutes past an hour. I really thank you for your effort. A virtual round of applause for the panelists. We appreciate very much. We hope to see all of you in Dubai and to continue these discussions and look at the futuristic solutions that city, but other partners who will be in Dubai are presenting. And now over to Rita just to tell us about what is coming up soon. Have a lovely afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are from Ertico side and my side. Bye.
Thank you very much, Vlad, Joost, and all the panelists for this really remarkable, very interesting webinar. I hope most of you will join us in Dubai to continue this discussion, where you will bring your own thoughts and your solutions, and for a very fruitful exchange there. Just a quick reminder, please do again follow us on our communications channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and please do remember the date of our next webinar in May, on the 16th of May, Thursday. Thank you all. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.